Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Once again, it is Fourth Friday. I am your host, Pastor Alonia, Dr. Alonia, whatever you want to call me, Alonia, but it's Alonia Parks. God bless you one and all. Thank you for being here. This is an amazing time together. We've been going strong since February of this year with this outreach called Fourth Fridays, and I couldn't be more excited tonight. Before I tell you more about what Fourth Fridays is all about, let's just open up in a word of prayer. Father, in Jesus' name, we love you today. We thank you, Lord, for this is the day you've made, and we're rejoicing and being glad in it, Father. We're thanking you, Lord, for the gift of communication, the ability to be able to come to the table and just have some candid conversation. God, I thank you for each of these amazing guests that you brought to us tonight. I thank you for them individually, and I thank you for them collectively, Father. Bless this time together. Bless this establishment where we are tonight. Bless our viewers as they're watching. Bless our guests that will come in. We just invoke your presence, God, that we can talk in a no judgment zone, and that these conversations will bring healing, joy, and deliverance as you purposed in its inception. We ask these things in Jesus' mighty name, and we declare them done. And so it is. Amen. All right, so welcome. Fourth Fridays. For those who don't know, Fourth Fridays happens on the fourth Friday. How did it come about? Well, it's brought to you by Dream to Destiny Ministries, of which God has called me to serve as the servant leader / pastor. And what I've discovered is that there are things that happen in our lives outside of the four walls of the church that we don't always get to talk about. And so I wanted to come into a non-traditional setting. And so here we are at the wine shop of all places. We're at the East Lake Wine Shop located at 1691 Camden Road. If you're in the DeKalb County area, or if you want to come to DeKalb County, make sure you stop by the East Lake Wine Shop. This is a community setting, a friendly setting, a wonderful ambiance, and we are happy to be here so we can have candid conversations. Candid conversations that are designed to bring healing, joy, and deliverance. Now, so far, we've talked about love and relationships. We talked about singles and soul ties and myths of marriage. We talked about mental health in the African American community. Last month, we talked about how music shapes our societal norms and some ills. We've also talked about Women's History Month. We had the mayor of McDonough here, my good friend, Mayor Sandra Vincent. We also had via satellite Vanessa Williams, and Vanessa is the CEO, the director of what used to be the National Conference of Black Mayors, but it's now an international organization. And she joined us via satellite or internationally from South Africa. And so tonight we have some distinguished people, each of who is really dear to my heart. One is on the way, and I'll introduce her as she gets here. But to my right is the very distinguished Mr. Donnell Williamson, who is my son-in-law. He's engaged to my daughter, Tori. He is a Morehouse man, and I'm going to just introduce them as I know them personally, very generally, and then I'm going to have them to introduce themselves formally. And then by the time the brothers get through, Dr. Joyce should be here. She'll introduce her. I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce her as I know her and have her introduce herself. Then we're going All right, so as I was saying, Dr. Dorsey is on her way in, and when she comes in, I'll introduce her as I know her, and then she'll introduce herself formally. This is Danielle Williamson. He is a PhD candidate, a Morehouse man, very articulate, very well versed, very well traveled, and someone that I know can bring a lot to this conversation. And then to my left is no stranger. If you've been in Atlanta for any measure of time, I know you know the Moore name, Dan Moore Sr., Dan Moore Jr. of the Apex Museum. If you have not visited the Apex Museum, you are doing yourself a disservice. So, and I know Dan for, Manny is 17. I know you before Manny. I knew you since I had the magazine, and that was 1997. So that's a long time. How long you been doing that? Long time. So I'm thankful to be able to have you here. I want to welcome you both to Fourth Fridays. Welcome. Okay. All right. So Donnell, you tell people formally who you are.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Donnell Williamson Jr. I am a third-year PhD student at Brown University, studying philosophy of religion. What I look at specifically is death and despair, thinking about the interrelations in the competing normative ethics of Christianity, specifically Protestantism. I studied Frederick Douglass and a 19th century Danish theologian named Søren Kierkegaard. Before I got to Brown, I was a student at Emory University, where I did a Master's of Divinity. And before that, I was at Morehouse. Like my mother has said, I call her Ma. I've been many places. I spent a year studying in Germany, learning German, spent some time in Russia, Jerusalem, and other places. So I look forward to this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. All right, Dan.
Well, my name is Dan Moore Jr. I am the operations director for the Apex Museum. Apex Museum is Atlanta's premier and oldest African American history museum. Inception 1978, and now I am its director. I have a background in history. I have a background in museum. What we do at the Apex Museum is we say we never begin our history with slavery, and that period of 400 years was an interruption of Black history. I'm glad to be here today.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you. We're glad to have you. And for those who are listening, we invite you. This is our first time having a live audience because of COVID. And so some of the restrictions have been lifted. So if you're in the area, we're happy to have our sister Beverly here. Thank you for being here. And I've got some other friends that are coming through. Dr. Dorsey will be here shortly. From what I understand, she has her sister Hattie with her, and I'll tell you more about them when they get here. But tonight's topic is, we tweaked it a little bit, but we're still going to get to some real issues. We're going to focus on our lovely city of Atlanta. Now, Dan, are you a native Atlanta?
No, I'm a Philanthropist.
Okay.
I was born in Philadelphia, but I came to Atlanta when I was around 13. And I went to Southwest Atlanta High School.
Okay.
No longer exists.
Right.
So I consider myself a philanthropist.
Okay, I like that name, a philanthropist. Okay, all right. And Donnell, tell the people where you from.
Yes, I'm from Shelby, North Carolina.
From Shelby.
So yeah,
Okay.
not in Atlanta.
Okay.
But I've been here. Atlanta adopted me.
Okay.
Shout out to me.
All right. All right. Well, I'm from Atlanta, born and raised, and our conversation, we're going to talk about some disparities that we see, but let's focus on the good. Let's start off focusing on the good, and if anything else comes up, we'll deal with it. But we massaged our topic a little bit to say, lovely Atlanta, we're celebrating our heritage, enjoying the present, and shaping the future. Now, I'm from Atlanta, born and raised, as I shared. I can walk to my birth home. Okay, and I'm what they call a Grady baby, but I was actually born across the street at Hugh Spalding, and I know Uncle James can identify what I'm talking about. And I asked my mom, I said, well, why wasn't I born at Grady? She said, because we had insurance. If you had insurance, you could go to Hugh Spalding, and I believe, come on in, welcome. Hey.
How's it going?
It's going well. Come right on in.
Are y'all doing something special?
It's just,
It's Fourth Friday's Candid Conversation, so make yourselves at home, enjoy the wine shop, and if you want to jump in on a conversation, you can.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, so that was a difference. So, Atlanta is different. What we knew it to be from the beginning, okay? It's different. It's still a lovely city, but it's not the same. So how do we celebrate our heritage? How do we enjoy the present? And then how do we shape the future? Because the community is different. Dan, if you've been here a while, you want to talk about some of the great things you've seen here in our city and maybe some of the not so great things.
well, I like myself, like to accentuate the great things. It's time that we look towards healing. I know that in Atlanta, when I first came to Atlanta, it was known as the Black Mecca. You had a mayor of Atlanta, and when I came from Philadelphia, from Philadelphia, the news was the first thing I noticed. When I got here, there were black people on the news. I never saw that before. I saw newscasters, I saw producers that were doing things on television that I never saw up north. I thought that was phenomenal. But then going to the museum, meeting people like Dr. Vivian, T.N. Alexander, people who are literally history, walking in those doors. They have seen some phenomenal things in their own right. But yet still, they all had a sense of, I can say, empowerment, but yet still encouragement. They encouraged us to move forward and never forget the past. It's the same with Sankofa. Sankofa bird, when you see it's moving, look like it's moving forward, it's looking backwards. And there's a tweet proverb that says, literally, it's not taboo to go to your past, to bring things to your present, to better your future. So I've seen that in the city of Atlanta, where we were able to take and remember what we had in the past while we're moving forward and bring it to the present to sift it and learn to better our future. So I'm seeing that now in more and more, because at our museum, we have individuals that come here from all over the world. China, Russia, Poland, Lithuania, or right around here on East Lake on Indicator, all in one room. And they all are learning about an experience. But how do we then teach that experience without having to say, making someone feel bad?
Oh,
right?
okay.
So that and with that being said, it allowed us to say, open up our arms, open up your minds to see something better than what we've seen.
Excuse me, one second. Dr. Dorsey, we're on, I can't, I'm trying to talk to you from the phone, but my son is coming out to let you in. Are you near? It's right next to the State Farm Agency on Campbell Road, right between Memorial Drive and Campbell Road. Okay, so thank you. All right.
So hence, we are now in a position to be able to position ourselves to teach the world about, say, Black history, and not having them to say, not understand it or be a part of it. Because the first thing I said was, we're all of African descent, every last one of us. Unless you're from Pluto or Mars, it does not pertain to you.
Okay.
But if you're a human being, you all disseminate from the continent about Caribbean, Africa. So with that being said, you asked the question, your question was, what's new?
Yes.
What's changed?
Yes.
Well, there's a lot that's changed in Atlanta. The infrastructure has changed. Over a period of time, things went waned. It was really high in business and formations of corporations that were Black corporations, and then it went to another area at some point. But we still maintain a sense of history. We still maintain a sense of understanding who we are as a people.
Okay.
And then my thing was, why not learn about my fellow friends over here from Greece, my friends over here from Italy? Because once we start doing that, we can understand not just our culture, but other cultures. That's why I admire what you've done, traveling to Russia, traveling to Germany. Then they get to meet you. And then you meet them. I told someone the other day, I can go anywhere in the world and have a cup of coffee, not understand their language, but raise my cup to someone and say cheers, and they say cheers back to me. I can go to someone's house and have a beautiful spread of food and enjoy their presence. So these are the things that I've seen in Atlanta happening, where we can now develop a sense of camaraderie, not just about a skin color, but about who we are as Atlantans first.
Okay, all right. That's good. You said a lot. You spoke a lot of volumes. I want to give your perspective, Donnell, as one who came to Atlanta to get your education, the first part of your education after high school. What does Atlanta look like to you? What's different from the time you came and the time you matriculated Morehouse and done your worldwide excursions?
Yeah, I will start by saying that I owe a lot to Atlanta. I think that I experienced a type of rebirth when I came here for the first time. And in order to understand that, I first have to position my upbringing, because growing up in North Carolina is still the South, and it was in the foothills, right, of Appalachian Mountains, right? And so I dealt with a lot of different people. I dealt with racism, I dealt with white supremacy, and I had to navigate that from birth to 18 years, right? So for me, and I always tell Corey this, oftentimes, my fiance Corey, is that I'm sometimes jealous of those who were born in Atlanta because they walk around with the type of empowerment that I had to learn once I arrived here. Because for me, I didn't understand what it meant for Black people to be in Black places. Like you saw people on the news, right? For me, the people, and I think this is important, why I study religion, the people who I looked up to were pastors. Because those were the only people who I saw in those places in my predominantly white community that was doing the work, that was out in the community, who was advocating for voting, who was, preaching the word on Sunday, but also teaching, who were introducing the communities to new things. And they were the people who were bringing things into the community. And I was like, this is someone who has inspired me to do similar work, and I wanted to do something similar. So when I came to Atlanta, for me, it was more so of like, learning about Black excellence, but also learning how to become empowered as a Black person.
Okay.
But then I learned that there was a diversity in Blackness that I had not known prior to. I will say that I saw Black people as a monolith in the sense that all Black Southerners had this particular certain worldview, a way of approaching the world. It was, it was one particular worldview. And being in the birthplace of Martin Luther King, I anticipated that people in Atlanta would still have that same type of worldview, right? That everybody was pro-civil rights, that everybody was out here marching for the rights and the uplift and the importance of Black folks. But then I realized that everyone's not doing that, but those who are doing it aren't doing it in the ways that I thought they were doing it. And then also that there was just a different perspective, a different approach to trying to accomplish certain things that would bring us to a different type of Atlanta. And when I say different type of Atlanta, I want to say that it's not necessarily a telos, an end goal. We arrive. I can welcome my cousins or people who I know from different areas of Atlanta into these same places, and we have different conversations, and there might be a different dialect. There might be a different language. There might be a different appearance. Somebody might wear clothes differently than I do or present themselves differently. But what I realized is once people in Atlanta got all those people around the same table, it was no longer about you don't look the part. There were no more so much like politics and respectability. It was more so we're here to accomplish something, to bring about something that's larger than everything that unfortunately whiteness would have perceived us to be, right? From the white gaze, that is like looking at Black people and expecting them to do something specific, to act and carry themselves in a particular way. And what I'm saying is not that those things don't exist anymore, but that in my time coming to Atlanta, that's what sparked my interest. That's why I stayed. That's why I wanted to be here. And since then, like I saw a number of them, right? I saw a new stadium. I saw the protests of George Floyd's death. I saw a mayor who was interested in trying to bring about social change. I saw the death of Ahmaud Arbery right there off of University Avenue, literally less than half a mile from where I used to live, where I was at Morehouse. So, you know, I think when I think about activism, when I think about world view, world change, when I think about trying to work towards a better democratic, American democratic project, I think about Atlanta. I think about multi-diversity, I think about multiracialism, I think about working together, and I don't see that happening in any other place, especially in a country that was so interested in oppressing, disenfranchising, and dehumanizing Black folks than here in the city.
You both have said a lot. So as you were speaking, Donnell, I almost thought of almost two Atlantas because of our differences. Because you may have somebody from the southwest side of Atlanta, because where you grew up there, that was considered O1. You know, Capital Road. Right. And then when you come on this side, we're on the line of Atlanta and Decatur, and we would say, okay, over in Decatur where it's greater. But on the inside of the inner city, you pretty much had the hood. Now, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. So, but when we come together, we're a melting pot. We are with one accord. I don't know if you all have heard Tank and the Bangers. I think I sent y'all a group message to my kids. I said, what is this? Because someone said, I love Black folk. And it went down from A to Z to everything that makes us unique. But what happens when others don't understand our uniqueness? And then we have to deal with the gays, as you mentioned. How can we celebrate our differences in this beautiful city, in this beautiful international city? And it's interesting that Atlanta is an international city. My first job out of college, and I'm hoping the Dorseys can get here, was having almost my boss when I came out of college. My first job was at the Chamber of Commerce, and the Housing and Resource Center merged with the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, of which Hattie Dorsey was the director. And one of the things that I learned at the Chamber was at that time, in 1989, they predicted that in about 30 years, Atlanta would no longer be Black and white. You would see an influx of more Blacks to where whites would no longer be the majority, but you would also see an influx of Hispanics and Asian Pacific Islanders. And here we are. But so how do we embrace the differences? Because there are so many differences, and I still am of the persuasion that gays exist because there's a lack of understanding.
That understanding is where we are, and that's where we are. People now are looking at what can I do to learn more about other races.
Okay.
Now, that word race. I have a totally different mindset when it comes to the word race. I said before, human race, then you have ethnicities and cultures.
Okay.
That's my mindset. And when I actually talk to people about that, then they say, okay, well, I get it, I'm human, but I have a difference. Now, we talked about, for instance, you can be Haitian, you can be Jamaican, you can be Black American, you can be from UK, you can be from France, still be a Black colored person with a skin of dark hue, but have different cultural beliefs and language and vernacular, things that we do differently, like you said, dress differently. So there's all these differences, but how we blend it is by saying, first of all, let's get rid of that word.
Okay.
What race?
Okay.
And I'll just ask, I'm human, what's yours?
Okay. That's a good one, the human race.
That's good. Because when you think about it, we are one race. Now, the racial construct came to divide. The word race was a tool to divide. And I explained to someone not too long ago that even with people who are Caucasian, at some point, if you were Greek, Italian, Polish, etc., you were not considered white until the late 50s. Because they figured, okay, we have to do something to kind of bridge this gap. We're going to bring you guys in that we used to call you names and call you white.
In America.
In America. in America.
So how has it been internationally?
No, I'm saying in America because I think that's necessary to have that view because, I mean, if you go to Europe, I'm Polish, I'm German, I'm Russian. And I think the difference, you know, I agree with you, Mr. Dan. I think the difference, though, is that in saying that, yes, they're ethnicities, but it's more about the nationalities, right? And it's something about, you know, having to, one, travel abroad. I'll give you an example. I lived in Germany for a while I was there. I met another black brother there who was German, and his parents, I think, his father may have been in the army and moved to Frankfurt and moved to Munich, something of that sort. Nonetheless, he was trying to press me and ask me, why did I stay in America? Why am I still an American? Why have I announced my nationality and left? Because of how he saw the treatment of black folks on TV. This is in 2018. So not yet George Floyd, but still similar. Eventually Trayvon Martin, right? So, and then you see the election of Donald Trump and all the things he's saying. He's asking, you know, why do you decide to stay? And I was like, well, no matter where I go, I'm going to have to deal with the same issue that you're also dealing with, but you're choosing to deal with them differently because one, you don't have the type of history that America has. And so America was interested in race. America was interested in a racial project. And so there were moments when the Japanese were put into internment camps. And there were moments when darker hued Italians or Polish persons, whether they were going into Boston or New England, they were not allowed to mix and assimilate with the white culture because there was a certain idea of whiteness. But then the project advanced, right? It was an idea to then move into something where if we have more numbers, then we can kind of hold up against this burgeoning Black, Latina, Hispanic group, right, that is coming about, and so we can strengthen ourselves in numbers. So I think that has a part to play with it too. But the difference, though, I think, is just in general, just thinking about what it means to be Americans and to Blackness within America, is that, you know, other countries don't necessarily have to focus on race. Yeah. Because for them to be that race is important. Now, what you see a hiccup is when the World Cup happened and the French, where all their black players who had immigrated from Africa, many of them were playing for them, and they started calling them names and trying to dehumanize them. But for the most part, to be a Frenchman, whether you're black, that's why you have people like Richard Wright and James Baldwin, like leaving and going to France because they realized that it was not so much anymore about the racial project that America was interested in, but it was more so a project about humanity. And I think that's something America had to get to let go. So the white gaze does follow you, and I think that's an American project.
We got a lot of work to do.
And I think we're doing it, even if it's piecemeal. It's being done. Okay. And I think, you know, if I reach one person, just one person, that's good. Yeah. Because if they come in, say, for instance, to that museum, they will say, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to see. Both sides, black and white. Blacks will say, I don't want to go there because it's about slavery. No, it's not. Okay. Or whites will say, I don't want to go in there because I don't want to be harassed or told that I did something wrong. No, you won't. But what I do say is this, that was a dehumanizing thing, and my thing is there's good and there's evil. If you're good, good. If you're evil, that's what you're doing. Right. Now, of course, we all have a little bit of a mixture of both, and every person, we got a little bit of everything in here. But if you disseminate systemically doing something to denigrate an individual, denigrate a people, and you do it systematically over a period of time, it takes a lot more time to break those barriers. That's a built fortress.
It is a built fortress, and you mentioned a word that is not mentioned very often, systemic, which is often followed by racism. I learned that from Dr. Dorsey. First time I was introduced to it, it's called racial and social inequities. And with that, brings us a level of discomfort because I've shared many times, you know, shooting up the liquor store and robbing the bank is not all that we do. But if we had to leave it to the media to tell our stories, that's what they would do. And there's more to us than that portrayal. But the reality is that if you sit down and talk to Pookie and ask him why he robbed the bank, Pookie was probably trying to get some money to buy some pampers, or buy some milk, because he can't make enough money at the McDonald's, because he doesn't have the education to get the kind of job that he needs to get. And the reason why it's like that is because of those systematic problems that have been ingrained into our culture and placed us at a disadvantage. And so if people are feeling some kind of way, we have a right to, but I think that there is a need to bridge the gap, to have the conversations, to do as you said, to let people understand it's not your fault. You weren't there. What's the term that the schools are trying to use to talk about this?
No, that's
not what it is.
That's not what it is.
That's what they're
They've
using.
taken that and twisted it to something else, because critical race theory actually does help us to understand what was going on. Us, meaning us, everybody.
Everybody.
But then they took that to say, no, you're trying to say that we're bad people. No, we're not trying to say you're bad people. We're trying to say that what was going on systemically in the system was decisions to tear down a group of people.
You know, to that point too, that I think the silent part is often misunderstood, even on the other side. Those who are attacking critical race theory, because there are different lenses, if you will, in law school that they teach you so that you can read the Constitution. Critical race theory is one thing, but you can be an originalist like Clarence Thomas or Antonis Scalia, or you can be a type of classical liberalist like RBG, right? But there are different ways of reading the Constitution. All critical race theory is saying when we're reading the Constitution, we need to consider Pookie's socioeconomic upbringing. We need to understand classism, which is another type of systemic inequity. And we need to also understand displacement, because all of those things has to speak to the sentencing that we're about to bring on him. Because if Pookie would put him into a situation that caused him to commit evil or harm or violence, well, that's not necessarily Pookie's fault, that's America's fault. And that Constitution has to do the account of also making sure that Pookie was granted all the resources he needed, and also making sure that Pookie understands why he's being punished for the criminal act he committed, but doing some type of help rehabilitation or something like that.
This is important too. That we're going back to our friend Pookie.
Yeah, I mean, we just and
all the Pookie friends out there.
Yeah.
I hate Pookie.
We can relate.
But we can relate. But once again, it's all about not only the external community, but it's also the internal community that has to deal with that issue. For instance, our mentorship programs, programs that are in the community that can help someone better their lives. Okay, those are very important factors. And it doesn't have to come from the outside. It needs to come from the inside, because people can't understand the Pookies. We can. So we need to be in our community to kind of bridge that gap. If it's about education, then we need to maybe build our own schools. If it's about what they're learning, we teach them different. So what does that do externally? The external, the gaze needs to be able to see. All right, there's a change. There's something unique going on here. What is it going on here? It's curiosity, right? And it doesn't kill the cat.
Right.
Curiosity does help, because if you're curious, you're going to want to inquire on what is being done and how maybe I can even help and or see something different. That gives you the opportunity to have an engagement. That engagement comes with conversation. You remember Ron Saylor?
Yes.
Ron Saylor, right? Ron Saylor preached a sermon. And I never forgot this. I've heard the slogan a lot of times, but he said you have to face it to fix it.
Face it to fix it.
And if you don't face your problem, you can't fix your problem. And so that reminded me from everything from, like, I had a bill, and I was like, oh, I can't pay this bill. And they were calling me, well, I'm gonna answer the phone and tell them, look, I don't have the money right now. Can we work something out? And they said, okay, sure. So what did I do? I faced it and I fixed it.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to do that in your own community, and it's externally they have to be able to see it and fix it as well.
Right, and I think that's very good. You gotta face it so you can fix it. That's just like when you have these AA meetings. What's the first thing they tell you? My name is Jane Doe, and I'm an addict. You cannot be in denial. We mentioned earlier some conversations that are beginning. to kind of get things out in the open. Going back to what you all mentioned about critical race theory, those conversations are critical, seriously, because what they're going to do is they're not designed to make people feel uncomfortable because they can't take ownership of something that they were not physically a part of. But what it's about to do is expose their grandmamas and their ancestors.
It's exposing American history.
American history.
American history is grandiose as it seems on the outside. When you looked at the Star Spangled Banner, that third stanza was literally saying, we're coming to get y'all black folks.
And
Y'all, we're gonna hunt you down.
that infuriated me. Go ahead, Elaine.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going, when he brought that up, that was like, what kind of crazy mess is that? Who puts that in the song? They're supposed to pay homage to a nation.
Francis Scott Key.
You know the brilliance of that, and I got to plug Eddie Claude, who's my guy. He has a podcast called History is Us. But he was talking about how, the pushing of public education, talking about building our own schools for our own people, right? What's the reason why that Francis Scott Key's Star Spangled Banner became my national anthem? Before that, there was no national anthem. There was the Negro National Anthem written by James Weldon Johnson, and they could not stand that. America did not Black folks started doing in the racial project known as America was like, wait, we don't have a national anthem. We need a national anthem. And so they go and adopt Francis Scott Key Star Spangled Banner without fully investigating it.
I'm sure.
But surely they don't care. But that goes back to the earlier point, right? It is not that they're not interested in telling the history. And it's not that they're not interested in having conversations about the competing narratives that they're telling. What they're interested in more chances or better chances of making sure all the generational wealth that I've stolen and pillaged from my folks, from other folks, can stay in my family, right? All the resources that I've pillaged can stay here. And so they're not caring about exposure. They realize what they're doing. They know what's happening. They know the history. It's a matter of making sure it doesn't become a part of the grand so that everybody knows. Why? Because the more people that I can keep in the dark, the more likely I am to have a better chance of ensuring the January 6th insurrection can happen. Because those people will be ignorant to all the stuff that I've been doing in the dark. And that's the point. The more we can keep in the dark, the better we can operate our project.
So it sounds like we need to stay woke and stay active.
That's another phenomenon.
Okay, yeah.
What is woke? And where did they, when I say woke, I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, I'm plugging it, but I saw a thing on WNL, and they were talking about the word woke. Okay? And so woke to me means I need to be alert that wherever I am, I'm woke.
Yeah.
On the other hand, woke means I understand your plight. I empathize with your plight. That's a different scenario.
Okay.
Can I give you another scenario?
Yes.
Excuse my language, I'm really sorry. This is not PG, but it's from my favorite author, Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man. His grandfather said another version of woke is keep that running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the more I can keep you running, because you're alert, you're always awake,
Yeah.
you're never sleeping, you're always busy, you're never taking time for yourself, you're not caring for yourself. Oh, I'm gonna keep you awoke, right? I'm gonna keep you awake rather.
Wow.
So woke. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. And these are things we throw out there, these vernaculars, but what are we actually tying it to that makes some common sense for the entire narrative of what we're trying to accomplish now? Because the narrative, like you said, has been already put in place. Who's telling the story? What are you being told? Media. We talked about the media. Who controls the media controls the mind. And when you see every day that there's a shooting, well, this way, and I said about even, and I don't want to go too far out there, but you're talking about, what's the street? Charles Lowry and, say, Donnell Williamson. And there's a shooting right there in the corner. But I said, do those young men know who those guys are on the street signs where they live? I doubt it.
Wow, I got it.
How much did they do to keep our communities safe and to make something better for our communities? I doubt it. So we, once again, got to go back to ownership about our own activities in with our own activities without having to really segregate someone else. Because we also, and that's a hard thing to do. Because that it's like, who was it? Bill Cosby.
Okay.
Went up there and said, we need to do this, that, third, and he got ripped from up to back because he was exposing what we were doing in our own communities and said we can do better.
Yeah.
So basically, he's saying.
Yeah.
However, people on one side took it one way, people on the other side said, ha, y'all been doing this and y'all know y'all wrong. But what we've said was we have a narrative that was being brought to us in a commercial form by the United States of America.
Wow.
Right? And it was already built on pretty much a premise of lies. Of course, when we talked about 1492, we sailed the ocean blue. What's his name? Christopher, that guy. Since 1492, we've been told that story until maybe recently, and then they said, "Oh, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you, bye-bye."
Yeah.
You know. So we have a lot to do. We have a lot to do to grow internally and externally to bring us back to a sense of saying, "Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Okay, there it is. Let's keep it."
Right. And you said something earlier, an adage that sprang up in the 70s here in Atlanta, that Atlanta is a city too busy to hate. And I believe that. I grew up loving everything about my city. And now when I walk through my city, it's different. It's very different, but I'm wanting to embrace, because I feel like I'm at home. I ain't going nowhere. You ain't about to tell me to get out my neighborhood. We're not doing that. But when we see gentrification, it comes with some really not so attractive implications. Where my family home is, was purchased in 1966, the year before I was born, for maybe $20,000 or $30,000. My mother gets robocalls all day long. You will say property? They'll probably give her three or 400 grand for it. But you know how much the house around the corner sold for $877,000. And you know, that's the reality that we're living in. And I know years ago when my father was ill, I lived in Alonia, and I wanted to be where I could, relieve my mom and stay at the hospital, but I had children. At the time I had 2 children, but I had 2 children and I had taken in my niece. I had 3 kids, and I started investigating, to see how much, could I live in the city, and what they wanted. The prices were astronomical, but I saw that it was strategically set up to work against me. So how do we deal with systems that are put in place? We would hope that it would turn into this beautiful melting pot that we were that I was told would evolve when I worked at the Chamber of Commerce. But it kind of sort of didn't turn into that. And welcome, Bonnie and Frank. This is for Friday. We're happy to have you all here. So how do we change that narrative? I don't even want to bring this narrative up, this adage up of can we all just get along, because so much came with that. We don't want to do that, but we do want to get along. We don't want people to feel intimidated because he's black and you're white. We're all one. We're one Atlanta, too busy to hate.
Well, I say again, if we get past those barriers, those barriers are, you're black, you're white, it's a barrier.
Yeah.
That's a barrier. You're rich, you're poor, that's a barrier. So there are going to be those barriers. It's all, no matter what, it's through generations, through time, biblically, all the way to where we are now. But what do? We first of all have to identify if in my heart I want to change, and if I take that heart change and I start living that way, and I start, when people see me, they see something different. When I walk into a room and the room doesn't look like me, I now don't feel any different. At one time I used to say, oh goodness, here, what am I gonna say, how can I eat my food, you know, really, I was that guy. And I said, why am I acting like this? We're all human. I've sat in places where someone from another ethnicity, culture, will come into our facility, will come in my space with my folk, and they will be like, and I have to say, how can I can identify with that person? So let me go to that person and say, hey, welcome. How you doing? My name is Daniel. Come on in, join us. Why can't I do that? Well, I can't, because I've made a change in my heart to do that. And if I said, once again, you take one person and make that change, I don't know, that one person may be connected to 50. And that one person's changed and then start changing 49 others. It's a domino effect. Just like it has been with racism and everything else that we put these constructs, those are domino effects.
So let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Or each one reach one.
Each one. All those are beautiful, beautiful sayings, and the agenda is there. We get that. How do we really implement that in daily life? Okay. And you have to live it. You can't just be it, you have to live it, be it. It has to be ingrained in your heart. And that's where it starts right here.
In your heart. Diane, any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't know where to begin. That was very powerful, Mr. Dan. And I'm thinking, and part of it is that what you were explaining is deliberate agency, just being deliberate about the choices we make, the things we do, the commitments we have, how we show up in the world, how we go about accomplishing those things. And that very well sounds easy, but I think, there's a lot of other things that play a role in that. Institutions play a role in that. Systems play a role in that. Education plays a role in that. And there's also these other barriers, unseen, invisible barriers, such as, social media might be a barrier. The food we eat might be a barrier. Our health might be a barrier, right? All of these mental health, physical well-being, right? All of those things get in the way of us just doing the work, because it sounds easy to do the work, but the work requires so much work.
Yes.
So much unspoken work. And I think everyone is waiting for a Fannie Lou Hamer, a Malcolm X, a Martin Luther King, right, to come and lead and be the quote-unquote savior, right? But the reality of it is that those were just everyday people. They were just ordinary people who took courageous acts. And I think right now what we need are people who take courageous acts. People who realize and go into different places and say, hey, the rent's too high, we're not paying it. And until you bring it down, we're not going to occupy the space. And it's easier said than done, but I mean, there's ways to press and push and, push back on governments and agencies within governments and things of that sort. But I think there must be a way for the people to unite and take back the power that people have, because we just haven't been doing it. And the reason I'm making this connection is because what you said earlier about leaving Alonia, coming back to the city, and the reality of the matter is that, culture is expensive. And Atlanta's culture has increased phenomenally, tenfold. So everybody wants to be here. Amazing. We have more people to contribute to the work that we're doing. Thank you. But the reality is everybody's not interested in the same thing we're interested in.
Right.
And we have to get on one accord, right? We have to find out what we can do to make sure that everybody is doing something that impacts the community, because we don't need another high-rise and we don't need another apartment complex. So those are things we don't necessarily need, but those are the things that people are putting their money and resources into. And so we have to figure out how do we navigate that.
That's interesting. We want to go ahead and start to wrap it up. I think you all have given us a lot of food for thought. I hear it has to start in our heart. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I hope that we have sparked some thought processes for you who are listening. We've had some friends to come in, and we want to welcome Bonnie and Frank for being here with us. I've got my kids here working behind the scenes, and Christian is our producer. We're certainly thankful for all of you all. And for those that are listening and watching, we hope that we have sparked some thought processes. Atlanta is a beautiful city. It is my city. I'm a native Atlantan, and I say it with my whole heart. And I just want to see the best for my city. I want to be able to celebrate our cultural differences. At the same time, I don't want to feel like a stranger in my own community.
Right.
So there are some things that I have to do in my heart. I have a voice. You have a voice. Like Danielle said, we may be looking for the next Fannie Lou Hamer or the next Malcolm X or the next Martin. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you, Corey. It's you, Manny. You, Frank. You, Bonnie. It's each of us has a voice. So let us start one at a time. Let us be the change that we desire to see. Don't be afraid to utilize your voice. Your voice has power. And it's not enough to just, pound and raise hell in the kitchen and just say you mad. What you gonna do about it? So what difference are you gonna make? And as we close, I'll just close with a quote that came as you were speaking, Dan. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. If you don't like what you see, then what you gonna do about it? I mean, I've almost said a cuss word, but we can be and moan all day long. What's it gonna do? You're not gonna do that. So what are we gonna do? As we close, Donnell, you want to tell people how they can contact you. And again, this is my future son-in-law. I won't call him son-in-law because we break the law all the time. But he's my son-in-law. And Dan is my longtime friend, and I'm so glad to see you. I give Dr. Dorsey was on her way here. I know she probably tried to call. I don't think she could find us, but I salute her. She's my mentor, my spelling sister, and I know we'll have to have her back another time to have another robust conversation. But tell the people how they can contact you, Donnell.
You can contact me at Donnell, DONNELLWJR, on Twitter or on Instagram, and that's also .com.
All right, Dan.
Well, you can reach me at the Apex Museum. Just call us at 404-523-2739. You can also follow us on Instagram at the Apex Museum, or just hashtag Apex Museum. If you want to reach me directly, danmorejr@gmail.com.
Okay, good. And I'm Dr. Alonia. You can reach me at that handle on all social media platforms, and also at dralonia.com. That's DRALONIA.com. Fourth Fridays is brought to you by Dream to Destiny Ministries, where we are really on a mission to help you live a victorious life while you're here on earth through the Word of God. We'd like to thank our host tonight. We are on the premises of the East Lake Wine Shop, located at 1691 Camden Road in Decatur, Georgia. We were here before, but there was no wine on the shelves. We were just opening, so the wine is here. The owners are here, and we are so thankful for Uncle James. We're thankful for DeAndre to open their doors for us to be a resource in the community, a safe haven, a happy place. And I want to thank my friends, Bonnie and Frank, for being here as a part of our audience. We had Miss Beverly earlier, and I got to give shout out to our production team. We have Corey on camera. We have Emmanuel managing our camera for our social media, and we have Christian handling our production so y'all can see us. So here we are. We thank God for you. I hope that this Fourth Fridays has been good for you. Like it, share it, and help spread the word. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.